All right, so we kind of have a sequence of questions here that, at least for me, are all about hand cannons. We're going to get into it, but I want to start off by asking one from Mr. Gintellectual. And this is not a hand cannon one, but I stare at my Eos Luna and I wonder about this. He asks, Descendant and Hammerforged do anything besides just increase the range stat? They say they do both range and accuracy. More specifically, do they provide an additional boost to accuracy in excess of that granted by the range boost?
No.
All right.
Really?
Just stats. They're just stats.
Just increases your range stat.
All right. Noosk, you want to talk about ghost bullets on hand cannons?
Yeah, what's a ghost bullet? I don't even know what that is.
Initial reports, when that balance patch came out, I was actually traveling, and so I didn't get to try it. But initial reports was that the last word was crispy AF, which seems to be the opposite of ghost bullets. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so, I mean, specifically talking about ghost bullets, that's an interesting term that sort of like the community kind of settled on and started talking about. And I saw it come up a lot in forums, and it was like getting tweeted at me like, hey, I keep having these ghost bullets, like hand cannons are broken. And yeah, I think I tweeted about that too. Like ghost bullets are, they're not a thing. Like your bullets aren't vanishing. They're not disappearing. And it's just symptomatic of what happens with the range stat. So basically like, with range, there's initial accuracy and there's final accuracy. And so your initial accuracy is tight. The first bullet you shoot is going to be pretty accurate, especially if the target is relatively stationary. And then as you land follow-up shots, you need time for the recoil to settle before you're going to get back to that initial accuracy state. So I think the phenomena of ghost bullets is people with probably that had range stats on their hand cannon that were probably like in like mid to low range in the grand scheme of hand cannon range. So like probably like 50 or lower out of a scale of 100. And they were probably just not pacing their shots well. And since the latest patch round of changes that Greg did to hand cannons, we increased the accuracy, and I think that I haven't seen or read or heard much about ghost bullets since then. So I think I think that can safely end the conversation, or at least like put to rest a bunch of thoughts that people have about hand cannon accuracy and where those rounds were going. Yeah, I mean, Greg did a good job, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but we paid more attention to the lower range values, right?
Yes.
So it's not quite as punishing if you have a lower range hand cannon, which is why the last word is, quote, crispy AF.
So the interesting thing with the last word is that with the other low range hand cannons, I touched the initial accuracy, but the last word I kept the initial accuracy where it was and only touched the final accuracy.
Huh. There you go. People will. You say that casually right now. That will be dissected to pieces for the next 2 weeks.
I'm writing internet comments in my head as this conversation goes. I just know how they're gonna.
So I wanna open up about Titans because I love them so much. I want to know a little bit more about, like, because you said Blink was, it has all this different options and there's a trade-off for it. But something like Titan skating, it doesn't seem like that was built to be the crazy fast ability that it is, being like the fastest subclass there probably can be. What do you guys see as the trade-off for being able to be that fast?
So
Gotta go fast.
One trade-off is that you are playing one of the weaker subclasses in a way.
The burn heal. I need it.
So I kind of agree. Like it isn't entirely. It was not entirely intended to be like the rocket ship that it is. Better Control was more aimed at directional changes as opposed to just tapping the button and bouncing off the ground to maintain velocity and then becoming a comet to land Fist of Havoc or whatever you're sort of using it for, and it wasn't obviously aimed at making the Titan the fastest subclass. But the reason, like, to sort of contrast it to Blink and why we might visit Blink and not yet visit Titan skating or make any sort of firm decision on it is that Like Blink is on the subclasses that are using Blink, that are commonly using it. It is performing, and those subclasses are performing at a level where we were looking for like opportunities to throttle them. In the case of the Striker, and I know this is going to be a little contentious because of popular opinion and perception right now, but they're not bad. They're not in a bad place as a subclass, but they're not exceeding anything. So they're like kind of in this nice zone of they're not completely dominating, and they're not sort of frustrating everyone, although a lot of people would probably disagree with that sentiment. But just purely statistically, they're not winning every game. They actually have a negative win drag. If you take them into 3v3, you're probably costing your team and things like that. So we don't want to like hit something like that with a hammer without a really good reason to do so. So it's a much more delicate problem. Whereas Voidwalkers and Blade Dancers are in a pretty good spot, and they're blinking around, and given that they're doing so well, we were looking for things to sort of bring it back a little.
And I'll add to that a little bit too, where like Titan skating was like a completely like emergent thing that sort of happened after the game shifted. Like that's a thing that the community sort of like landed on that we didn't intentionally build into the game. And one of the things that we did try to address in the first Titan patch was we made controlled lift a lot better. And so the thinking was, we make this better. It might be considered an option away from Titan Skate. And obviously we didn't succeed in that, but that could maybe answer some of the questions of like, why didn't we touch this back in whenever it was when we did the Titan Pass, and the reason was because like rather than take away this thing that people love, we were like, okay, how about try this instead? Is that going to work?
So does it fit well into like the way you see a Titan? As like, I feel like we said it before on the show that it's like the kick down the door. You're right there.
Definitely kicks down the door.
Yep. That sort of personality of the Titan, it definitely nails it. And again, that's another reason that we don't want to just immediately dismantle it, I guess.
Well, I agree. Let's not immediately dismantle it.
Yeah. Whoa. Don't do anything rash.
Yep.
So there was that one question of whether we look at like skill brackets and
there you go. You got the rustle.
we got a rustle here.
That's how you know we're serious.
So it's interesting. I guess I'll list the top 5 most used weapons in skirmish and trials for the top 10% skill bracket players and the bottom 90% skill bracket players.
Okay.
So should we start with top?
Let's do the bottom 90 because I feel like I have a better sense of what those might be.
Number 1, Grasp of Malik.
Sure.
So this is just from purely last week, right? Like our data is very, very shallow.
Joking.
Right?
Okay.
So
sure.
this is not over months of time, but this is purely just last week. Everybody was farming for Grasp. So number 1, unsurprising. Number 2, Last Word.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, Mida.
Yep.
Number 4, Doctrines. So I combine both the Doctrines, Adept and non-Adept. And number 5, Hawksaw.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Sounds right.
Okay. Pretty understandable.
right.
What about that top 10%?
Number 1, Last Word. Number 2, Grasp. Number 3, Mida. Number 4, Hawksaw. Number 5, Doctrines.
Same guns, different order.
Same guns, barely different order.
Yeah.